right, welcome back to the Prospect Podcast. We have a great guest with us today. Before we go into that, I'm Coach Schumann. I have my co-host, as always, Coach D, with me to my left, and we're excited to have another Prospect Podcast with a fantastic coach to NBA players, Coach Phil Beckner, who we're excited to really talk to about what it takes to develop elite basketball players at the highest level and what helps those guys succeed. So welcome to the podcast, Coach.
Guys, thanks for having me. Love what you guys are about.
It's trying to find out what makes people great and what makes them want to be great. And so we're really excited to talk to you because obviously you work with a lot of fantastic athletes. It'd be great if you could kind of go into your background as a coach, player, and how you really got into this whole space, really kind of developing players being their personal coach and developing their overall abilities.
Absolutely. My story was a little bit more unique of how, I branched off into this. I grew up in a super small town in Arizona. Always had a passion, to play basketball. Was kind of my ticket out of the small town, per se. So played at a small college, Kansas Wesleyan, NAIA school, played there for 4 years. Something unique about my coaching journey that I like to share, and especially whether it's with other coaches or prospects, because everyone now wants to talk about, working with the best of the best, kind of like you mentioned. We all have this hunger to study greatness. We all want to learn what the great ones are doing, but something I take pride in my career, I've actually coached at every level. I've coached junior high, high school, Division I at every level of Division I, the low major, mid major to high major level, coached professionally, worked with a couple NBA teams, consulted with teams, coached in the G League. So again, going back to my journey, right after college, I coached 2 years of high school. From there, I went to Weber State. That's where I kind of got my start into college coaching. Spent 7 years there. Then the next year, I actually worked for the Oklahoma City Thunder with their developmental team, their G League team, the Oklahoma City Blue. Went back to college coaching, coached at the University of Nebraska, then Boise State for 2 years. And then so after that whole run, to be honest, as most leaders and most coaches find themselves at some point, they're searching for something new. I was a little kind of burnout and frustrated with just some of the hard parts of college athletics at that time. So I took a big step and I started kind of my own training and consulting, private business. Started working with just a couple NBA players. It's grown. And now I've done that the last 7 years. So I work with primarily NBA players, some, kind of top high school and college guys hoping to make it there. But then also, one of the most fun parts of my job, last week I was on the road. I get to fly around and consult with different colleges and help them on developing players, whether it's their character, their leadership, their mentality, and getting to work with coaches and players that way. So it's been really fun, and obviously got to do a whole lot of, different things over the last 7 years privately.
That's really interesting. You've really run the gamut of the different areas that are possible from a coaching standpoint, and I think it's really interesting. Touching on all those areas makes you perfect to become, a coach that really is kind of focused on, top players or players trying to get there because you had those different experiences. What did you? I'm curious. What did you like better, high school, college? What did you enjoy more?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question because I think when you look back, and you guys know this, I actually just I had crazy travel coming back. I went to the University of Baylor, then I went to Troy University. I spoke at both schools. At Troy, I spoke to the football team, the basketball team, worked with the athletic department. Baylor, pretty much just men's basketball. But I'm flying back. I was delayed all day. And I watched the Rick Pitino documentary from last year, Pitino Red Storm Rising or what. Mm-hmm. And that dude's he's an assassin. He's a killer. And but yeah. He makes a great point. He said, if you're going to be a great coach, you better have great players. Unfortunately, I was a young coach, but I won at the high school level. I won at the college level. So that made it all worth it. But watching that Pitino documentary, looking back on college, man, there were some wars back then. That was probably the best time when you get to show up and, the arenas are going nuts and everyone's, competing extremely hard. It did make me miss it a little bit.
Yeah. No, well, the excitement of it, right? The excitement in and out of playing at that level is something that's you can't top the excitement of playing at the highest level. So it's something that I think is really exciting. When you transition into uh, being a uh, consultant, what kind of made you move into that process? What made you kind of say, hey, I'm going to dive into this and I'm going to, try and work with elite athletes to really kind of focus my time in that area?
Yeah, two things. One, and I've shared this, a few times, but I let the college profession eat me alive, to be honest. I don't think I was happy. I wasn't healthy all the time. When I left Boise State, I was 35 years old. I was associate head coach, but I weighed about 158 pounds. I was not doing well. So I had to look in the mirror and be like, hey, is this what I want to do? Is this who I want to be? But then, the second part, man, I just I think, God has gifted me with some abilities to connect with people, to push people to an extremely high level. And maybe sometimes that's even a gift to work with, what we all call, and what you were talking about, coach, like the best of the best. Not some people are fearful coaching guys like that. So, I had to step out of my wheelhouse a little bit, follow God's calling, and really, try to like believe in my passion, believe in my gifts, and say, hey, I'm going to try to maximize this and make a difference in these teams and these individuals' lives.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool thing. Now, getting clients in that aspect. So I guess because you coach at Division One, you probably already had a network. What was that like? Developing the client relationships, going after and getting clients, convincing them that it'd be worthwhile coming in and working with you.
Yeah, I took a different approach in that. It was the first time ever kind of starting my own business, becoming an entrepreneur. I think there's a lot of, now, especially in the basketball world, I think it happens in football and baseball too, but there's all these private coaches now in the basketball world. They're called trainers. I don't like that name. Yeah. I'm a I'm a coach. I've always
Right.
coached. Me and the
Right.
people I work with in Phoenix, we say we're player development coaches, not just a train. Like, I didn't know how that became a big profession, but coach, what I did, and I like listening to a lot of business podcasts or leaders, again, kind of like you alluded to. We all want to know what makes the great ones tick. But I had coached Damian Lillard at Weber State. So I was always kind of, his developmental coach. And even in the summers, when I was still coaching college, he would come back and train with me. And summer after summer, he'd be like, Phil, let me work with me full time. I need this. You could help me. And I didn't do it. I never wanted to. So I kind of always had one client to start off with. But I think what I did differently and what has made me and our deal super successful out here in Phoenix and being able to travel around. And I think this is so good for young coaches to hear, or people, starting out as an entrepreneur and building their business, is I had a clear cut vision of who I was going to be and who I was not going to be. Like I made my mind set on those before I made my mind set on like a salary or money. And I said, hey, I'm not
Right.
going to I'm not going to sacrifice what I want to do and what I want to be about just to make an extra 50 or 75K a year. So it was
Right.
really slow kind of starting off, because I know I wanted to be a professional basketball trainer, and nothing against high school kids, but I could have made, a whole bunch more money year one or year two training high school kids and doing camps.
Sure, of course.
That's not who.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I wanted to build my business and somewhat my brand the right way.
Yes, and that's always the hardest part, because the getting the bigger, better, probably more lucrative clients takes a little more time, and the low hanging fruit is going to be high school players or youth players, and that anyone that can pay to train with you. You know what I mean? But I think you're right. Like, bringing in those top tier guys takes some time, and being patient and sticking to what you wanted. What is obviously Damian Lillard's probably a slam dunk from what you're looking for. But what is the kind of guys that you're looking to work with, at the NBA level, or the guys that are potential NBA guys that might have that ability that you identify? What are some of the things that you're looking for from them?
Coach, we must have like this connection going on here virtually, because as you were as you were talking about, man, it's slow and getting those big clients are hard, or what I was thinking in my head. I'm like, man, I wish I could kind of tell the story of like, I'm not willing to work with everyone. Some of these
Right.
coaches or trainers, as long as they have an NBA jersey on, they can't wait to go train the dude, take a picture, put
Yep.
it on Instagram.
Yep.
So
Oh yeah.
you just
Yeah.
asked that, which is like, and again, we hadn't talked, or planned any of these questions out. That's such a good question. We have a staple within all of our player standards. We have 4 player standards we believe in, that we ask everyone to work to, or to show up to, and they take absolutely zero talent. But before they read those standards and agree to come out here, agree to train with us, the first quote I have on the page, and I think maybe even the Miami Heat say it as well, but our way is not for everyone. I don't want to train perfect players. I mean, I want to work with guys who have a passion. I want to work with guys who have character, the right level of character. I want guys who have a sense of maturity, who take responsibility and ownership for their game, for their own developmental process. And I want guys who are like-minded. And that means not like-minded, like we're perfect and we're better than everybody else, but we're able to accept some of our flaws, know that like, hey, we have a vision, we have a goal, we have a mission we're all trying to strive towards. We're not perfect. There's going to be some conflict. We're going to butt heads once in a while, but we want to stick together. And we want to do this thing a little bit differently than what most normal people are doing, or what society is telling us is cool, or what social media is telling us what's popular. We want to stick with, kind of our mission, our values, and our beliefs.
That's very difficult now too, because you start working with, especially, guys looking for edge at the highest level, and they see another guy doing some drills or something, and it's all over, like you said, it's all over Instagram. And then you're saying, hey, this is my process, this is the way, and there's an education factor in it. Do players come to you specifically, or do you have to like say, hey man, like this is how I do it? Like, I know like how does that part work for what you do? It's very intriguing, because when you're working with elite players, some of them don't like you working with too many guys, right? Some of them want you to have a smaller number. Some of them don't care. You know what I mean? As long as you're working with them when they're ready to work, they don't care if you work. What is that kind of process like?
Yeah, number one, two words we always talk about with and this is for all coaches, I think, of all levels, but like there has to be a level of connection and there has to be a level of communication. I work just extremely hard at trying to have a plan on whether that's skills or concepts to get my guys better. I want to say I work even harder on how to connect with them, whether it's building their mentality, like we always say, fighting for the space between their ears, working on their heart, helping them as a human. So without that level of connection, there's not going to be a lot of trust. There's not going to be a lot of buy-in, whether you're working with 20 players or 5 players. But coach, my structure is a little bit different. Like I said, development is so dang important. I don't think you could work with 20 guys and truly develop them if you're trying to take them. And what I always say is like, I'm either going to take someone from good to great or great to elite. You can't do that with 20 guys. And I fall into this trap sometimes because I'll be on YouTube or my buddy will send me an Instagram video and you'll see, oh, this trainer has this many clients, or this trainer worked with 5 all-stars this season. Guys, and we know this, social media poisons so many minds and souls to what we do. And it's not only everyone wants to coach our players on that. Then this is why, like, I do a coaches mentorship group. We do some clinics. Like, it's poisoning us as coaches as well. So what I try to do, I only work with 3 to maybe 4 guys during the season. That is it. I'm not going to take on any more than that. If there's ever a conflict of interest, it's probably because of more alignment of values and vision. Like, hey, like, no, again, no one's perfect, but I'm not going to work with some guy who's screwing around all the time on social media or staying out every night, or they're more worried about partying and, being, and instead of being on time to work out. Like, I'm not going to train guys who show up late. So I'm only going to work with maybe 4 dudes during the year. And now, as I'm doing more public speaking and consulting, I'm even trimming that number down some. But coach, the reason why is because we truly want to develop them. Like we got to dive deep into their mind, their heart, their game. Like we don't want to be the Walmart of basketball training or the Walmart of personal development. We're not doing that whatsoever.
No doubt. I think that's an important thing. And when you're working with a few guys, you can get to maximize, what they can do. They build that relationship and trust. Yet you talk a lot about the leadership component and the development component, the mental aspect of what you're working with your guys. When did you really dive into that part of it? And, how do you, relate it to when you're training athletes?
I think it was something, I played in college. So like if you ever played, and I'm nothing against guys who didn't play, but like if you played, how important the mental side is. And I think what's different now, and you guys are seeing this a ton, especially doing the media, and as many of these podcasts as you've done, and as long as you guys are doing this, there are so many people who just like call themselves experts because they could go buy a mic, a phone, or whatever, and they've never been in the field of competition or any of that. So
drives me crazy, by the way. So,
and obviously we're kindred spirits here. You know what I mean? Like Garrett's nodding his head, through half this stuff. Like I get it, but so I think I always did it because I played, and then when I coached, maybe we're coaching kind of the psychology of the game or the mentality of the game, and we didn't necessarily have like this rhyme or reason or scientific reason like some of these experts may have. But here's what like really, really hit me. And it's kind of a cool story. And I'm actually writing my book. I'm supposed to finish it in the next few weeks on this. But I always tell this story. We have this phrase, be better, be different. I heard about it. I heard a quote at a clinic, turned it into a phrase when I was actually coaching at Weber State to kind of help us get over the hump of, making the NCAA tournament, winning a conference championship. But what really hit me is my first year consulting, or training guys privately. I had 2 kind of private clients, but then I'd have some different guys train once in a while. And coach, this was crazy. Like I'd always talk about the messaging or our mindset or send motivational videos, but it was really, really simple. I put be better, be different on a wristband, and I gave it to my guys. And I'm like, hey, we got to keep working our mentality. And these are some of the best of the best. And that's what I hope any parent or coach or young athlete listening to us right now, I hope they realize this. And I know I'm on a bit of a tangent, but like they think these superstar dudes or these all-star caliber players or these $100 million guys I get to train, they think they never struggle. They think they like don't lack confidence or get selfish sometimes. Like these dudes struggle too. We're all human. We all got to work on that aspect of the game. So going back to my story, like I gave them all like a wristband, and coach, it was crazy. They're like wearing it over and over and over. And I'm like, we could talk about shooting and ball handling or conceptual development or getting these guys better. And like, I'd show up to dinner, boom, wristband on a game. Like Mikal Bridges, who is playing for the Phoenix Suns, he's now at the New York Knicks. I think for like 2 straight years, he wore the same wristband in the game until it broke. So I'm like, it took players having to show me how important it was instead of a coach or, again, some guy who never played and thinks he's a genius and read a couple books on sports psychology. It just showed me how important it was to pour into their minds and hearts as much as their game and their skill level.
Well, I think that's
I think that's go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I was gonna say. I think like I was gonna say. I think that's like it's just something that as a player, right? You understand the magnitude of what actually like how much of the work actually comes between the ears and what it takes day in and day out to go through the grind over and over and over. And I think as somewhere along the line, coaches began to realize, or the development of a player came more than just the physical grind mentality of, hey, we have to dribble, we have to run, we have to do that, where it really became like, look at the mental side of this and what has to happen. And I think that's coaches nowadays can relate to more so because it was more in the forefront, as I become the old head on the staff, right, and all those types of things, right, where it's more mental because that's what they've been brought up on more so. So somewhere coaches began to connect on that side of it. And I feel like there was always a certain level of always kind of had that one coach that would dive into mental side with you, as a player, but it wasn't the majority, right? So now you see the majority, or at least more of guys taking that mental approach to it. And it's what kids relate to now, the over explanation of things where it's not just my way or the highway anymore, right? Like the here nowadays wants to know why. They ask why, because they can literally go to their phone as soon as practice is over and find out freaking why, right? Whereas back in the day it was just, hey, it's this and it's okay, I guess that's what it is. You didn't question it. So I think that side has changed just how we view things as coaches. It's definitely changed, my approach to coaching, right? Because, and we talk about it, Dave and I, on the show and with our guests all the time, is, for the most part, you coach the way you were coached and how you were kind of that's what it was. That's really all you knew. So now I think it's just, as, at year 16 coaching high school football, it's just, if I looked at myself when I started to look at myself now, the mental side of it was a piece of it, but it definitely wasn't the size of the piece that it is now. If anything, nowadays I find myself coaching, the person or student athlete, who they are, way more than I'm coaching X's and O's, or whether they can break a tackle or catch a ball, or those types of things. And I think that's a huge shift in coaching, at least at the level that where I'm at, right, which is kind of where it all really starts. It's different.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's where I think you hit it on the head. We all coached how we had been coached. And now, unfortunately, and I get to do this again with some college programs, or again, I do, a coach's mentorship group. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of people coaching the coaches anymore. I was a consultant with Doc Rivers for the 76ers.
Huge.
And he said when he was with the Celtics, Red Auerbach used to come down, and he said, who evaluates the evaluators? Who coaches the coaches? And you guys are football guys, so you'll appreciate this story. Man, I want to say it was 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember. Mario Cristobal was at Oregon, though. He had followed me on Twitter. He asked me to come speak to the team. All you football guys love guest speakers way more than basketball. So I go out there.
They appeal to the masses, Coach. You're talking to overall guys with football. Basketball, it's too close dynamic there, man.
I just spoke to the football team at Troy. Man, I have so much fun speaking of football teams more than basketball, to be honest. I walk in, they're fucking hollering. They're four dudes are standing up on the chairs. I'm like, what do you guys, sit down. You all are just wacko. But going back to it, I speak for Oregon football.
A lot more personalities in football teams. A lot more personalities. You get a lot more of those guys. Coach.
Excited football players are excitable. That's the big. You can get them excited and push buttons on emotions, because that's why they play football, right? That's pretty much why they play, because they like that. They're super adrenaline junkies, right? So
no question.
Everyone.
It was a blast. But so I spoke at Oregon. I walk off kind of out of the film room. Coach Cristobal grabs me and he goes, hey, we've been wanting to hire a guy. What would it take for you to work with us? And I'm like, bro, I'm a basketball. He's like, no, what you talked about mentality-wise is exactly what I believe in, and I want to build into these guys. And then he said it, and that's where, we kind of got this phrase. He goes, I want you to work with me. I worked with him, just him and a couple guys on his staff. I didn't even really work with – I came back and spoke to the team. But he said, we want to fight for the space between their ears harder than anyone else in the country. And I just thought that was so powerful, and it was so good. And obviously he's at Miami crushing it now, and I got to work with them throughout the year just on messaging, mindset, mentality, what the great ones do, and because it translates. I don't care if it's football, basketball, the corporate world, or whatever you're doing. If like I said, if you're trying to go from good to great or great to elite, there's going to be some similarities we could all build at every level.
I agree 100%. And that space between the ears is so important. And reason why football coaches, besides the fact that players are definitely can get excited if you you get them rolling. There's so many people, right, that they have to get going in the same direction, and it becomes so difficult where I think basketball players sometimes take it for granted that, okay, we have this guy's our scorer, this guy, everybody kind of already has their role and what their role is, and they're probably not moving too far out of it, and they don't have to integrate a whole bunch of different pieces at the same time, right? We know our world for the most part. These 5 guys are the starters. These 3 guys are the next guys that are coming in for certain reasons, and the rest of the guys doing a lot of watching. Maybe get in a couple spots here and there. You know what I mean? They're the rally guys actually. But in football, what is I think is so interesting is that that space behind the ears. If a culture goes bad, and obviously if a culture goes bad in basketball, you're really in trouble because there's so few guys, right? So, but it's intimate.
Yeah,
like
it's hard.
You probably know almost immediately if your culture's going bad because it's so intimate. You're around the same guys. You're going to get a much more immediate feedback. Football, you may not get feedback for a while. You may not get feedback. It may fester in 2 or 3 guys, which may become 5 guys, and those 5 guys may not say anything to a lot of guys for a while, and then all of a sudden it's or it's your defense. Your defense is not on the same page, but your offense is, right? And so
sometimes the pockets, right, Dave? Like sometimes you can have pockets within a locker room that within a monster football team can kind of hide out for a little bit, and fester and kind of grow. So I think that's where, and then, with basketball, obviously, like it's pretty much immediate because they're in front of you every single day.
Well, you're going to know pretty well, especially if your star player goes in the tank. You're probably going to be struggling right from the get-go, so you got to get it right back on board. But it's and I'm not saying anything that you don't know, but I think it's so interesting, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. How the getting a large group of people to buy in to a process, whatever that process is, right? A team, company, but a process, right? And a company might be even harder in a sense that obviously there's thousands of people potentially in some of these big companies. That's why they bring in speakers, right? Because there's thousands of people, and the engineering department may hate their life, but the marketing guys are loving it. And and you don't know, and every part has to work together. That's why I always say athletes are great. I think they're great entrepreneurs, but they're also great guys to work in corporate, right? Because they've already experienced this, and at the playing level. And then I actually think coaches who leave coaching are fantastic. They don't hire them enough, but are fantastic guys to go into the corporations and do really well because they've experienced it. Not when they're playing, but they're experienced already the motivational aspect and development aspect, and have seen both the good and the bad, right? Because every coach you coach long enough, you're going to see the good and the bad, and you're gonna learn from that process. Where myself having worked in corporate before as an entrepreneur and not coached high school kids for a long time, now coaching my son's teams at the youth level. When you're in corporate, like, people walk around and, they don't know each other that well. They may not say something to somebody, right? So it's really interesting. But I'm curious as to what how you go and you get a group captivated, you get them to really walk out there saying, I'm going to take a couple of these action steps to change what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to do what I do more. To answer that question, I would hear from a bunch of good speakers as a coach. I was always a clinic junkie, or even when I taught high school, they'd bring in speakers. And the one thing I remember, not all the time, but a lot of times, and it really bugged me, they would get you kind of fired up, and then you'd walk out fired up, and the next day you'd be like, okay, now what the hell am I supposed to do? So there was motivation, but it wasn't combined with strategy. They didn't give you any real next steps. And Coach, I think, like, you're asking, how do you get, this company or this huge football team or program or what to get everyone aligned and to get everyone going? I think the two things they lack most of the time. And I find this over and over and over again. Number one, their vision isn't clear. My mentor, who was actually a football guy, told me this all the time, but high clarity equals high performance. And it's a proverb, in the Bible, like without a vision, people will perish. The leader has to paint the vision or express the vision so clear that everyone sees it. They know which direction they're heading. They know what it looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like. They have to have a clear-cut vision. And so many companies or leaders or coaches are mediocre or failing because the vision might be clear to them, but it's not clear to everyone else. That's the biggest problem. The second part, though, and like I said, I do a coaches mentorship group. We have coaches from all different sports. They sign up. We do it 5 months during the year. I assign kind of like little homework projects or whatever to build their resume, to build their career, to build their program. On average, 20%, and coaches pay to be part of this program, only 20% of our coaches respond and do the follow-up work. Think about that. That's 2 out of every 10 people. So when you go back to now trying to drive results or performance in a program or get everyone on the same boat, 1, you got to have a clear vision, and 2, you got to have an unbelievable level of follow through and follow up. And people don't do it. And that's what I think. Actually today, this is crazy. I'm doing you guys this morning, and then tonight I will speak to the Ohio State men's basketball team. Well, I spoke to them a month and a half ago. Now we are following up and doing it again. A month and a half, we'll follow up and do it again. Some schools, they sign up for this, package, this consulting deal with me. I go and speak and they love it. I give them the strategies. I give them the things to execute. They don't follow up all the time. You could probably hear it. You got me fired up with this one a little bit, but man, we want to be so clear on what we're trying to do and where we're trying to head, and we want to make that clear to everyone. And I'm thinking of, like you brought up football, man. You have I've been in these staff meetings. You have special teams meetings, receivers meetings, offensive meeting, defense. You have all these. The vision has to be clear in all of those meetings. And I'm not trying to ramble here, but you guys remember this.
True.
And people talk
about it's 100%.
But remember the game telephone? You would tell a thing by the time you get to the 7th person, they got a name wrong, the subject wrong. We have to be clear. Then how many people are following up and doing the work after that? Here's an example. I'll train a guy. I have 2 guys I work with on the Phoenix Suns right now. If we bring up a topic in that workout, man, you are not chasing the ball, tipping it off the rim enough right now. You're not deflecting the ball. I'm going to follow up the next day and then send them some type of video edit that shows maybe another great player in the NBA doing that job well, because I want to be intentional and adamant about following through and following up, because I know 80% of coaches won't do that. And now if I do it, I'm in the top 20% of coaches just doing a little bit more extra for my clients.
I agree. And I think, going back to what you talked about in the beginning, coaching the coaches is becoming a lost art. And I thought the pandemic hurt that part a lot. Meaning we went to online for, just what we're doing here, right? We're online for most things. It's easier. You can get a lot of information quickly, but you end up, doom scrolling a lot of times. So someone might watch this podcast for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Okay, zip through it, get a couple of main points, move on, forget about what it was. Whereas when we used to have, if at least from a football side, an abundance of in-person clinics, an abundance of them, meaning I might like the Nike clinic, and Derek might like the Glazier clinic, and someone else might like a system-specific clinic. You would be there in person and have much more of that interaction. Now it's come back a little bit, but not in the same way, because everybody has, you could go to an in-person clinic, but they all have a library of videos that you can now go and just go in there and watch all the past clinics, right? And people listen, I get caught in it. I'll be like, you know what? I could get the information faster, quicker without having to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's good and bad to it, but I think that part, when you want to coach the coaches and get them to the next level, being in person is a big deal because they develop trust. So when I'm getting information online, I don't have to trust the person per se. Trust is a benefit, but if there's something that they're saying that hits, I can take it whether it's one source or another. And it's probably part of the issue we have with news too that comes out all the time, right? So we're getting stuff from people that maybe we shouldn't trust, but it's a source standpoint that is easier. Coaching and coaches is so critical, and I one of my biggest examples, I tell this to now I'm coaching my son's youth teams, and I coached high school for 20 years. I ran showcases all over the country with you name it, came through my events for recruiting for like 15 years, and seeing thousands of guys, and I was an NFL agent for 6 years. So having done all those things, certain things you realize. And one of the things you realize is that people really don't know things about how to develop players, especially young players. But it goes all the way up that level. And you talked about the trainer aspect, but those coaches a lot of times are doing stuff because they have a hunch that this might work, but they don't really have any foundation behind it, right? Where they can go and talk to a coach about it, or they could go to a mentor about it, or another coach about it. And I think that that's really important. And I talked to my youth coaches about it. When I first started with them, I came from high school and I was like, we're not doing Oklahomas. Okay. I don't know if you know what Oklahomas are, but basically it's two kids bashing their heads into each other, right? Disguised as tackling. Okay. And when I was in high school, I could tell you we did that. And the biggest, strongest guy won, right? Derek won probably most of his when he was in high school. I crushed all the kids on my team, knocking out like 2 or 3 every time we would do it. Okay. It was a terrible, terrible drill disguised as a way to find toughness. Okay. To find toughness, right? But when I go to youth football practices, every time I turn around and watch every other age group other than mine, I could tell you every other day they're doing it. Every other day. And the problem is that information isn't coming from in our case, the high school coaches to the youth coaches, the NFL to the college coaches of what they want. There's some information there, right? College coaches to high school. There's absolutely very little that goes on anymore from college to high school. Okay. In fact, a lot of things are pushed up from high school, right? So that whole lack of communication all the way through relates to a situation where the most important people to learn things correctly, because eventually you want those kids to come to high school to be farther along. And obviously college guys want those guys to be farther along when they come to them, is not being taught. Okay. So I teach with my coaches, and now they actually pointed out that I hear it over in the corner, and I see the kids that are 8 years old, and I'm like, oh no, I hear them doing it. And the kids are excited. That's the thing you have to get around too. This is an important part. The kids want to do that. People don't realize that. They think the kids don't want to do it. They want to do it. They want to do it because this really, if half your team is pretty strong, right, and the other half isn't, the strong kids are having a great time. They're crushing everybody. They're having a blast. Well, what about 12 through 20 on your team? They're not having a blast. Okay. They're getting their butts kicked. All right. And it's an important thing. And I use my son as a gauge from that because my son's quarterback and he's a safety, but he's not one of the better. We have much better tacklers on our team, but he's a pretty big kid. And he loves it because either he gets the physicality. And I'm like, okay, if he really loves it, he's like these other guys that are the top tier kids on our group that are just like, they love it because it's hard to tackle them or they can run you over. That's why they love it, right? Those coaches need to be coached on. You need to develop them first on things that are not human related and tackling before you take them to human related tackling, because they're doing it incorrectly. And eventually someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get knocked out. Someone's going to hate football. And I think football has a problem from that standpoint, a major, major problem. And I would not have known it until I went to youth. I would have not known it. Not that there aren't places that aren't doing well, because we interviewed yesterday in Texas. They probably do a lot better job of it because those kids, there's so much money in there. The high school coaches are paid a lot, and there's a all the way down effect that goes on. But Texas and maybe a few other places are anomalies relative to most of the country, because that's not the case. They don't have the budgets. So when you talk about coaches, it's so important. And I want to know from you, how do you, first of all, coach the coaches so they come and respond properly? Because a lot of coaches have big egos and think they know how to do it better. And my second part is, what are steps that coaches have to take to be coachable themselves?
Yeah, man, that's you just gave me like the double-edged sword right there. Holy cow. I think, and I'm a little bit different again, and, I get a reputation for being a truth teller and being hard charging at times. But when I coach coaches, depending on the level, I kind of have two different approaches. Like if you're working with a head coach of a program, I think that's kind of one lane and one approach you're going to take. And then if you're working with an assistant of a program, that's a different one. I'm way harder on assistants because I was one. I was a head coach, high school, JV level, but college coaching, I was always an assistant. Pro basketball, always an assistant. So I'm a bit more hard charging, with those guys. But the thing is with coaching coaches, goes back to a little bit with players, not so much connecting, but I think with them it's reminding. Like, why did you get into this? Why do you want to do this? Is it really about you, or is it about the kids? Is it really about you, or is it about winning? Is it about you, or building something special, or building a special culture? So not just connecting with them, but reminding them, trying to pull on those heartstrings a little bit of like, why did you choose this profession? Why did you get into this? Because we all got to get kind of reset and back into that. Same thing why I left college coaching, because this stuff could eat us alive.
Right.
Again, with assistants, I'm more hidden responsibility. Like as an assistant coach, and this was an old quote, I think John Wooden maybe said it, but when you join a team, you give up your rights and you gain responsibility. And so many times, like I had an assistant coach hit me. He coached high school for a while. This was literally last week, I think, just got his first college job. And he's like, hey, you can't coach kids out of fear, this, that, what. I go, like, I get it. He goes, well, I'm meeting with someone on our staff. Should I tell him that I don't like what our head coach, I'm like, what our head coach is doing? And this, I go, hey, pal, you just went from the high school level. It's your first college job. Like this dude's been there for 7 years. But again, some of these assistants, they don't have, a level of humility or awareness or any of that. But coach, going back to it, and I know
great point. Yeah.
You were almost on, your soapbox right there. And I'm on my soapbox. Like I agree. And we are. Like these coaches need to be coached. Where are they learning? Where are they getting their stuff? You talk about the Oklahoma drill, and so much is screwed up. We have parents hitting kids in an Oklahoma drill now. Like on social
I see the videos. It's crazy.
Yeah. Like,
I can't believe it.
So, I mean, and one of my big kind of, it's almost a business philosophy now, but also a development philosophy. Here's what I've heard and what I say all the time. What used to be normal is now the exception. Okay. It used to be normal to walk out and hold the door for the people behind you. It used to be normal when someone's getting off an elevator to let them out. It used to be normal to like give up your seat for a woman on the shuttle, whatever it may be. It used to be normal. We're big on this with guys I train, high school, college, to like say, thank you, coach. You did something for me. I say, thank you. You give me gear. I say, thank you. So a lot of what we do, we know that things that used to be normal are not normal now. We want to get back to doing some of those things. And moving forward, what's so hard about it, and it's, again, Coach, you said this, our country, it's not, I agree with Texas football, head of the curve. Texas basketball was the same way. They get an athletic period every day at school to practice, play. But one of my good friends, he's the head coach of the Toronto Raptors. He's from Serbia. He's coached overseas. He's like, Phil, When I wanted to become a coach, I had to study kinesiology. I had to have a certification in coaching. I had to have a certification in teaching, not just like a bachelor's degree, just some type of certification. Guys,
Right.
and coach, you're a football guy, so this is no offense to you. But in basketball training now, you got to go get like a backwards hat, a cell phone, some cones, some water balloons, and now you're a basketball freaking trainer because you played in high school or college. Like that
It's the same way in football trainers now. It's the same way.
Yeah, it doesn't change.
You gotta
Everybody's a
navigate
position guy.
who's good. You really have to navigate through who's good. You know what I mean?
Because the core of the problem, and here's what I think we could look at too. And again, we could talk about this till we're blue in the face. Neither of us probably could fix it. We do have the ability to fix it with those that are around us. So like my mentorship group kicks off in October. Those 20, 25 coaches are going to get better. The clinics we do in Phoenix, they are going to get better. Our interns who come out, same thing you were talking about clinics, like people need reps at this stuff, not just watch it on a phone. Or you got to be able to talk it, say it. You got to be embarrassed a little bit as a coach. And unfortunately, what's happened, the cancer of the problem, and my coaching mentor told me this all the time, and here's the cancer of the problem, I think, in our country, is if you want, like my mentor would always say, if you want to be a cop, what do? You go to the police academy. If you want to be a doctor, what do? You go to medical school. You want to be a teacher, college of education. If you want to be a coach, what do? There's nowhere to go. Back in the day, there used to be certain camps or coaches you could work for and come up in coaching, or 5-star basketball camp, or all this different stuff you could do. Unfortunately, those programs have fell by the wayside. And not to sound like I have all the answers, but if there is a program in place, like I said, people need clarity and the vision of what it's supposed to look like, how you're supposed to do it. But if there's a program in place, is there really any follow-through or accountability now? And that will help coaches, and in turn, it will help us develop players better.
Yeah, the follow-up and accountability is a big deal. I like what you talked to also about when you talk to head coaches versus talking with assistant coaches. I think it's something that a lot of assistant coaches need to hear, okay, because a lot of assistant coaches in general are going to be younger, and the young people really think they got all the answers, and they have to be able to understand that there's a process to things, and they automatically look at the head coach. This is just my experience with a lot of assistant coaches, and I've been an assistant coach, so it's not like I'm saying it from someone who hasn't been an assistant coach. But I was a head coach for a long time, and I was a head coach as a very, very young person, very, very young person. And there were things I had to learn, right? But assistant coaches have to learn what you said best, which is humility. Find out what the head coach is all about. Find out what he's looking for. You joined his staff. He didn't join yours. That's an important thing for assistants to understand. And a lot of times assistant coaches, because they are needed and there's not enough of them available, they will feel that they're doing you a favor. Now, not college. Obviously, college is different. But if you're talking at the high school level, a lot of times they'll feel like they're doing you a favor because it's hard to find a good assistant coach, right? So that's a balance thing that a lot of head coaches have to do. And from an assistant coach's standpoint, understanding what the head coach is looking to accomplish, the head coach has to be clear on what he's looking to accomplish, because then he can evaluate the assistant if he's on board. I think that's a big, big part. So when the head coach clearly articulates and is adamant about it, and maybe it's part of when you see him coach, like the one guy said he doesn't like that a guy coaches out of fear. Well, it's funny because the newer generation thinks that a lot of coaching is all about being positive. And I could tell you, because my father is a legendary high school track coach. Literally, still coaches. He's 84 years old, and he coached for 60 years as a head coach. And his whole thing on our T-shirts, everything through a high school, he did it all the way until he stopped being a head coach at 83. Was positivity is contagious, negativity is destructive. It's a phenomenal philosophy. It's one of the greatest philosophies of any coach I've ever been around. Positivity is contagious and negativity is destructive. And we would always talk about it. But I could tell you this, in order to get to positivity, right? He's positive about your prospects as an athlete, your future as a coach. We're positive about that aspect. Positive about the opportunity to have success or win a game or whatever it is, right? But it doesn't mean that it's every single time you did a great job, everything's good, Johnny. That's what some of the assistants have to learn because they feel positivity is the way to go, and maybe they grew up with a coach that was negative or whatever, and they focus on that. There is a level of I don't know if I would use the word fear, but maybe fear is part of it. There is a level that I think people have to understand that you can't act improperly and continue on that path and then expect us to believe in your success.
Yeah.
That's an important thing for athletes to learn. So sometimes you have to bring that up to them and for them to understand, you said you wanted to do this. You're not doing this. Is what you're doing helping the team? Is that a no or a yes? If it's a no, then you're going to have to change what you're doing. Okay? Sometimes, and sometimes, like when I was young as a coach, I yelled a lot. But I learned that you got to balance that and really you save it for the most important time periods that it has to happen. And there are guys that don't believe in down. Tony Dungy doesn't believe in doing that at all. Okay. And it works for him. For me, my personality, I will coach you all the way through. If we're succeeding, we're doing well. You're probably not hearing a lot of yelling from me. Okay. You're not hearing a lot of, if there's a mistake, I'll correct it. Where you will hear it is if I see laziness, if I see not hustling, if I see me talking and you're over there not paying attention. And then, I usually ask them the question is that more important than what's going on over here? If it is, you should join that group. If it is.
Yeah.
If not, then you should be paying attention over here. And kids really understand those things. It doesn't matter whether they're 10 or 22, they understand that stuff really quickly. But I think that that's an important aspect of coaching the coaches is that, especially with assistants, is that understanding what the coach's philosophy about, and also understanding that you may differ than him, and that's okay. You may differ than him. Lane Kiffin is one of the greatest guys to listen to talk about Nick Saban. You can't get two people that are more different in their coaching philosophy than Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin. Now, both are great coaches. Nick Saban's the greatest of all time, in my opinion, college football at least. Nick Saban is a fantastic football coach, but he talks about it. He talks about when he went in there with Nick Saban, and he does a lot of interviews on this stuff. But when he went in there with Nick Saban, like he had been under Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll was what he knows. Pete Carroll is an uber positive guy, lives in that way. And Nick Saban is purely a process guy. I mean, everything is a process. And he talks about how like they won the national championship. The next day they were in a meeting, and that's how. Now you have to understand, as an assistant coach, this may be a short-term thing to learn from Nick Saban. What can I take within my philosophy of coaching that I can learn from Nick Saban? I think Lane has done that very well. He's talked about like he had to become more process-oriented on certain things. Now, does he still send out funny tweets? Yeah, that's his personality. But he took certain things from Nick Saban that has helped him to become a much better coach down the line within still having his own personality. And I think that's a great example. Like if they're friends because of it now, but when they were together, I'm sure there was nothing but butting heads. From a coaching standpoint, do you advise players, and because that's what you work with primarily, but coaches as well, do you advise players when they differ on certain things, how do you advise them to approach the head coach on those kind of things? Because that's especially at the NBA level, man, that's what you read about more than anything else. LeBron's the coach of, really the head coach of the team. how do you get guys when something may not be going their way to approach the coach the right way?
Yeah, I'm really, really old school on that one. You were alluding to it like, hey, you signed up to work for that guy. You're getting paid to work for that guy. That's your boss. You know what I mean? If someone tells you to do something, you got to do those things like that. Number one, we're always going to start there. And number two, we always want to look within first. I think it's just so, especially in youth sports right now, or some of the elite high school and college kids, it's so easy for them, as soon as something goes wrong, to look outward. So we always say mature winning players, when something doesn't go well or you don't like what you hear, and this is a response we have to work on, but our first response is going to be to look inward. Hey, what can we do? What can we control? And then after we've done those, then we might need to approach coach and ask him about it. I didn't say tell him about it. I said ask him about it. Like so many of these guys, and Derek, you were talking about this earlier, there's so much information. These kids have every answer now. They're smarter than freaking we are. We got 2-year-olds on iPads and they know so much stuff and they do so much stuff that they don't think they have to listen to adults or listen to a boss. So I think one, just respecting, an authority figure, a mentor, a coach, having a greater level of respect. Number two, looking within instead of outward about what they're saying about, I might need to improve this. I might need to do this. Let's look inward. And then the third thing, asking about it instead of going in there and be like, I think I should play. I have a problem with this. I'm not getting the ball. I'm not getting the snaps, blah, blah, blah. Like, let's ask and figure some stuff out. Because again, not to try to sound like the old coach on my lawn, but man, what used to be normal is now the exception. Used to be like, yes, sir, do it, or you're off the team.
There's no doubt about it. And what are you doing? What are you doing every day to make sure that you're the best that you can be? Because that's an important aspect.
Right.
Like I talk to my son about this all the time. I talk to the players about this. Like, people don't become great by accident. You have to be doing something every day. There was a great, I don't know the guy who even put there's so many clips out, you know what I mean? So you try to save some clips that are great on something, but I don't even know who put this out, but it was a lacrosse coach that talked about when he was coming up and when he was a freshman in high school, he was at a camp and all the college coaches were there. And the coach asked them, how many of you guys want to be Division I level lacrosse players? And every hand always goes up, right? Every single hand always goes up. So every hand went up. And he said, well, you have to take 100 shots from now until you go on to whatever, you go to college, right? In order to have a chance to be a Division I player. But here's the catch. He said, you can't take off for when it rains. You can't take off when you're on vacation. You can't take off because it's a Saturday. You can't take off because you're on the weekend. You can't take off, and if you can't find the goal, you got to make a goal to shoot at. You got to figure out how to take 100 shots every single day. If you do that, you'll have a chance. So it goes to what you're talking about when you say your acting steps. My question always would be, I bet you as soon as the coach said that, 99% of the people never did that. But there probably was one, and that person probably did go Division I. But he's telling you the formula, and that's the greatest thing. Like, someone's telling you the formula, all you have to do is follow it, okay? And it's so hard to just follow it.
We call the camp. Dame and I started 4 years ago for elite high school and college players. We bring 15 college guys, 15 high school. We call it Formula Zero. His number is 0. We call it formula. We're giving you the formula. And our 3 pillars of the formula are character, hard work, and accountability. Those are 3 things we all need. But Coach, like you said, there are things that go within that. And I heard this quote a long time ago. You used to tell Dame this all the time in college. If your dreams don't match your actions, you have 2 choices. You either change your dreams or you change your actions? Which one do you want? And most guys don't want to change their dreams. They want to play Division I, or they want to win a state championship, or they want to be a professional athlete. Well, then you have to change your actions. And we break down a lot of that stuff specifically to show our guys, to show our coaches, to really drive performance.
I know you have to get running. Before I let you go, Coach, if you could go and just, talk a little bit about the thing that you have. I think it's October 5th coming up. Talk a little bit about that and where people can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on social media at Phil Beckner on Twitter. That's the thing, usually the best. Instagram as well, same thing. We are starting off our coaches mentorship groups, all this stuff we talk about coaching. I bring in some phenomenal people across the country, from NBA teams, high-level corporations, football people, you name it, to kind of coach us as well. So you get access to some really good special people, but it's for leaders, coaches, executives, anyone who wants to grow, anyone who wants to get better. You can check it out on our website too, www.bebetterbedifferent.com. But just trying to impact and help people grow. And obviously we all need that as coaches, because we can't give away what we don't possess.
Absolutely. Well, it's been great having you on, Coach. I look forward to seeing more of you. And we'll definitely get you back on down the road. It was great having you on today.
Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you both. Thank you.
Have a great day, Coach. Bye. That was great having him on. He was phenomenal. Really phenomenal. Great speaker. I can't hear you, Derek. Oh, hello.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. No, he was really good, man. You can tell that he does it like for the real deal.
No doubt about it.
You know what I mean? Obviously, he's been at many levels and whatnot. Good for. I mean, I was glad to get him on. I was shocked when he was like, "Yeah, sure, anytime." I was like, "Dude, let's go. That's awesome."
He's great. I mean, Damian Lillard's a good person to have as a first client, right? Can't
not bad, right?
Not too bad. Really interesting stuff. It's coaching the coaches, man. Obviously he works with players, but now he's working into that realm with the leadership aspect of the coaching coaching people that want to improve and mentoring them. I think that it's such a missing thing in what we're doing. It's a missing thing.
The biggest that goes awry is that guys think, hey, you're a coach, you're good. Like, nope, nobody checks in on us. Nobody, you know what I mean? Like, it's the biggest part of it. Coaches need to be coached, and that's really important as well. Like, nobody checks in on coaches because they just think that they're good to go.
And mental health.
How many coaches are unhealthy? All that stuff. Coaches lose their minds because they just overkill. Somebody babysit them too, man.
Well, my
connection's getting. Can you hear me? My connection's getting funky.
Yeah, your connection is a little funky. It was like going in. You were going in and out. Like, I don't know if.
It's so weird. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's up.
Nope, I just lost him. But yeah, I thought the coach was phenomenal. I think some of the things he really touched on is really the you either got to change your actions, or you got to change the way you're doing things in order to improve yourself. And coaching a coach is a big aspect of it. And asking people what you could do to give you better as a player, like instead of always falling to the trap of looking at something from an aspect of what somebody else is doing externally, doing what you need to do your best. And if you don't know what that is, going and reaching out and talk to your coach about what you can do better, things that you could do better to contribute to the overall squad. I think that's a key component to it. Until next time on the Prospect Podcast, Coach Schumann and Coach D, I'll sign off for him as well. We'll see you soon.